No way.
Hi, everyone.
Good day, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Three Commoners podcast. Today, I will be leading a very interesting conversation with Already, and we do have a guest with us today. It's international. We're recording on International Women's Day, so we just had to throw Sherman away. Like, we had to figure out a way to have an only girls thing today because psych, I'm just joking, guys. It's actually just coincidental that Sherman is not on the episode today. But today we will be having a very interesting conversation around customer service experience, customer experience with Black businesses. But I think our focus will mostly lean into the Nigerian experience, since that is what most of us on the podcast today are, very conversant with. We'll touch a little bit on like the foreign experience here and there, since we've all lived in diaspora and all of that, but mainly, Nigeria centric. Today we have a very beautiful guest with us, a customer experience professional. Her name is Sotonye Ehimiaghe. Sotonye is a certified customer experience professional and actually a co-host of the CX Playbook podcast, which focuses on customer service experience. She has a background in law, an MBA in fashion business, and she spent over 5 years training more than 30,000 entrepreneurs, business teams, and public servants across Africa on customer service excellence. So today we have someone that's very, 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 very qualified, to help us navigate this conversation. And I think her expertise is in navigating Nigeria's complex business environment and makes her the perfect person to help us unpack today's conversation on experiences in African business. Welcome to the podcast, Sotonye. We're so glad to have you. Thank you for agreeing to do this on short notice.
Thank you.
So excited.
Yes,
pleasure.
I'm very excited to have this.
We really think your diverse background will be so interesting to tie into this.
I hope so.
Sure.
I really hope so.
Yes. And I think speaking on background, let's start from there a little bit. Law, MBA in fashion business, customer service experience, professional, and what you actually do like in your professional job.
Yeah.
So let's walk us through it. How did a lawyer decide that she wanted to get an MBA in fashion business?
Okay, so interestingly enough, the desire to do fashion came before law. I grew up in a time when you had to be a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer. Like, there was no room for your passion. So I knew I wanted to do fashion, but I had to use law instead. So that's how I ended up doing law first, and then I still went on to do fashion business.
The MBA in fashion business. Okay. That makes sense. I think we all grew up in similar times. Already is a lawyer, not a lawyer. People call me a lawyer, but I'm not a lawyer. So I definitely understand, growing up in that. I remember when I told my dad that I wanted to be an art student, it was like, oh, okay, great. You can be an art student, which I ended up not being, but you know that the only thing you can study there is law. That's the only profession that exists there. And I'm like, maybe I'll do like I'll study public administration. And my guy told me straight, maybe you don't want me to pay your school fees too, because what do you mean you're going to go and study public admin?
I think I wanted to be a writer or something, but obviously that's not, I mean, it's still there somewhat, the need, the want, the desire, but how you explain.
Are you not supposed to be writing supposed to be writing some book already?
You should.
It's in the works. It's in the works. I'm working on it.
You're supposed to write a very spicy book. Okay. We'll come back.
I told you to keep me accountable. I appreciate it.
Well, sorry, life is lifing. Moving back to Nigeria is not easy, guys. But anyways, I segue. So okay. So you always wanted to do fashion business. You ended up studying law. Now you come back to fashion business. Was it in studying fashion business that you discovered like customer experience, customer service? How did that what led you down the path of like customer experience and service?
Yeah, so I think that was it exactly. While I was studying for my MBA, I realized, one of the modules I was really passionate about had to do with, customer experience in fashion retail. So I think that's where I would say it started. And then moving back to Nigeria after that, I used to get so worked up about, terrible customer service. And, there's something my mom used to say. And she said to me when I complained, and she said, if you're really worked up about a problem, then do something to fix it. And so, started my interest in, okay, what exactly is this? Why is it so different here? What can we do about it? And then It was during COVID. I just had a baby, like right at the start of COVID. So we were all indoors. My fashion business was, at a standstill because all the tailors had to go home and all of that. So in that moment, it just struck me, okay, this would be a good time to start doing something about customer service. You don't need to be physically present. You can start online. And that was how, I started my journey in that industry.
That definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
If there's a problem, what are you going to do about it? I think that a lot of people that are successful with what they do, whether it's service industry or food, whatever business that they're doing, I think that they're more successful when it's a gap that they're feeling. So that was definitely great advice from your mom, asking you what you're going to do about it, and you actually leaning into it and deciding to start something in that field. And so in your years working in that field so far, since you decided to do it, I wanted to hear from you, and it's like one of my burning questions when we decided that we're going to bring you on. What would you say are the top 3 issues that you've noticed with customer service in Nigeria right now?
So I would say the first one, and this would be what I would call the basis on which I do what I do. The first one is that a lot of people aren't delivering excellent service, not because they don't want to, but because they don't know to. So I start from the point of a lot of people just do not know. So I think lack of the knowledge would be my number one. Number 2 would be for those who know, there's still a gap because of lack of training. So they know they should, deliver excellent service, but there's this notion that excellent service is a personality thing. So you're either that kind of person or you're not. And so people sort of depend on their personalities to deliver service. They don't realize you have to train for it and you have to train people to deliver that service. So that would be the second one. And I think the third would be that Nigeria is would I say, a low trust society. We have a serious trust deficit.
Yes.
And when it comes to service delivery, trust is important. Trust is one of the foundational things. So when you're operating in a society where customers don't trust businesses, businesses don't trust customers, business owners don't trust staff, staff don't trust business owners, you then have a problem because it's so difficult to then, come together to actually deliver the kind of service you should be delivering to your customers. So those would be my top 3. The lack of knowledge, lack of training, and trust deficit.
Trust deficit.
I was also just curious sort of about the trust thing. Could you give us an example of that trust deficit? Because I actually I agree with you, but I think it would be interesting to see how that plays then into, for example, like a fashion business who is dealing with customers or even just dealing with their staff who is going to help them make those sales and reach out to customers. What sort of example can you give us around that sort of low trust, if in your experience?
So one of the major things when it comes to fashion businesses, the world over, we know and we take it for granted that fashion businesses have refund policies. Now, one of the reasons that Nigerian fashion businesses do not subscribe to that is because of a trust deficit. So they would tell you that they don't trust people to buy their clothes and not wear it out and then return it. Right? And so based on that, they're not even considering. Now, what that means is you literally have an entire nation where 90% or more of the fashion businesses do not have a refund policy, which is ridiculous to say the least, because you can't even be delivering the kind of service you're supposed to if you do not accept, returns or exchanges. So that's between the business and the customers. When it comes to, let's say, within the business, right? So let's talk about the internal customers, the staff. Owners just generally do not trust their staff. And again, it has to do with this kind of society we're coming from, where there's just this thing of people the poverty rate is so high, illiteracy is so high, people are just trying to get ahead. And that would always play into, their place of work. Because even there, they're trying to cheat their employers. Employers are aware of this and are trying to avoid that. So even between the management and staff, you have a serious trust deficit. Staff feel they're being, taken advantage of. Management feels staff are just going to steal from the business. And it does happen often enough for those feelings to be valid, right?
For sure.
So that's between, yes. And then for customers
Yeah.
just same. We have in Nigeria, we have so many small and micro businesses. And I mean, at the end of the day, not everyone is in business to do business with integrity. A lot of people are also out to scam customers. So customers have
Very
also
Mm.
true.
built this, lack of trust when it comes to businesses. And it's going to take a lot to convince your customers that you are a legitimate business and you're not out to scam them. And so, like I said, the trust deficit is valid on every
Mm,
side.
every
But
side.
now the
Yeah.
difference is,
Yes.
and this is the thing, the businesses that would actually go far and build, a sustaining legacy in this society are the ones who can overcome this trust deficit. And there are a few businesses who are doing it, and there are ways to go about it, but you have to be willing and understand what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
That
Wow,
is
those
an
are great
interesting
examples
point.
because such a great
Every
point.
You
Yeah.
see, every
Yeah.
single thing that I feel so seen. I feel so validated because whenever I go into establishments, just like you, like I mean, I don't think I've been out of touch with Nigeria long enough because even though I've lived away from Nigeria for the last like 13, 14 years, I've been coming home every year enough to know that there's a problem. But moving back and spending like an extended period of time, I'm like, okay, there's a problem and there are problems behind the problem, right? And hearing you talk about this trust
Yeah.
thing and how there's no trust between, customer and business and staff and whatever that they're hiring is it's so refreshing to see somebody say it because people just chug it to, oh, that's how Nigerians are, or Nigerians just, don't we don't have the spirit of excellence. Nigerians just don't like to do things right. And I'm like, no, there is a systematic problem at play here. And for me, it's always been that trust
Yeah.
issue. So my follow-up question on the trust situation would be, or my follow-up conversation would be, how do we navigate as if I was a business, how do I navigate this low trust system with my staff, with my customers, with my suppliers? Because there's also that angle. Just as a business, what
Yes.
would be some practical
Yeah.
steps that I can
That's
take
right.
to navigate it?
Okay, so let me start on the side of the business. First, I believe, I don't know if it's by virtue of also being a lawyer, but I believe, where there are no rules, then people just do whatever they like. So one thing I always advise, clients and businesses in general is you must have your service standards. You must have the set of rules that tell people that when you are dealing with us as a business, this is how we expect you to behave, right? And I'll give you, or when you're dealing with us, this is how we conduct our business. So it's up to you to fall in line or find someone else. Okay. And
Okay.
an example would be, having something like your policy. Now let me go back because I use the fashion business. Let me go back to talking about the whole refund policy thing. So as a fashion business, say you want to have a refund policy, and you're like, okay, there's a trust deficit. However, I know that this would be great for my business. And I want to actually get the kind of clients that, can build trust with my business, responsible clients. Okay. I would suggest, okay, you have your clothes, then you put a visible tag, somewhere visible. We all know how that's done. And so in your return policy, you're saying the conditions for return, you must return within maybe 48 hours or within 5 business days, and that tag must be still attached to the piece of clothing. So in that case, it's not possible for someone to have worn the clothes out with that tag, but they could have tried it on at home and decided it did not fit. They couldn't have used it for a photo shoot because it's the kind of tag that once you take it out, right? So what happens is you then find that over time, you start building a relationship with the kind of customers that you want to patronize your business, responsible and trustworthy customers. Okay, because while you're making it difficult for, customers you can't trust to feel comfortable in your space. So for me, one, you must have service standards if you're going to overcome that trust deficit. Two is training. So like I said, a lot of people are doing things just because they don't know better. And then if we can admit that we have a systematic problem or a societal problem as Nigerians, then we have to be willing to train people to learn or unlearn so they can do otherwise. Okay. Because I want to believe that for the most part, if they know better, they would probably do better. So training is also very, very, very important. And when it comes to building trust as well, you don't really just come out and say, I'm a business, trust me, right? You have to do certain things to make your customers trust you over time. Trust is built. So things like if you say you deliver within 48 hours, you must deliver within 48 hours. I want to say all the time, but I will use that loosely. You must deliver within 48 hours. If you say you use the best quality materials, you better be using the best quality materials, right? That way, people over time get to learn that, okay, this business, they do what they say. We can trust them. We can keep going back to them. We can keep telling people. And trust is built when people tell other people about your business. So if someone tells me you're trying to buy like organic skincare products, oh, go here. I've been using them for years. Fantastic. Guess what? I approached that business already with a level of trust. They don't need to prove too much to me because someone I trust has sent me to them. So trust is also built by doing and doing and doing with your current customers. So now when they start telling people about you, it's easier to maintain that trust with your new customers. So yeah, that's what I would say would be my, top things that businesses can do to start building that trust with customers.
I was just curious, sort of on the thing you touched on when it comes to knowledge and training. How much appetite have you seen from businesses wanting to improve their customer service standards? What I've heard and sometimes what I've seen as well is that sometimes some businesses in Nigeria, for whatever reason, it could be financial, it could just be cultural, feel like there are certain things they shouldn't spend money and time on. And I think training for customer service, learning about customer service, customer experience optimization could be seen as one of those things like a big job, So how much appetite are you seeing from businesses or organizations that are thinking, you know what, let's try and optimize this? Is it there substantially, and is it growing? Is it declining? Is it the same? What are you seeing? And is it in any specific sort of industries, niches, areas within Nigeria?
Okay, so with the bigger businesses, the global businesses, they already understand the value of that, right? Because they are playing or hoping to play in global markets. And they know that, customer experience or customer service is the one thing that's going to give them that edge. So they don't need convincing. They have the appetite. They're good to go, right? They just want to find someone who's the right fit to train their team. But now when we come down to like the micro and small businesses, it's very challenging. And it was very challenging when I started because, like I said, a lot of people don't know. So I started by explaining to them why it's important. And you see, we live in a society where most people are just trying to survive, right?
Yeah.
They're doing business because they need money for their next meal. It's not necessarily because they're trying to build something that would last. So it's easy for them to just, decide that customer service is not important. And so how I used to teach it and create awareness was to show them how customer service literally affects their income or their revenue as a business. And that worked perfectly fine. A lot of them bought into the idea because then I was speaking their language, because if it doesn't put money in their pocket, they don't want to hear it. Okay. But now you've gotten them to understand, but there's still a challenge because you're not asking them to pay for training. A lot of them can't afford it, right?
Okay.
So the ones who can, once they understand it, they're happy to pay. They're happy to get their staff trained. I have people who would still come practically every year. They want to retrain, train new staff and all that. Fantastic. However, there's some people who are happy to take your free information and just see what they can do with it. And for me, that's good enough because at least you understand. So it means when you can afford, you would even do more. But, I also say that, there's little to no excuse these days. So, you talked about how I've trained over 30,000 entrepreneurs and their teams. It's because I also partnered with, non-profits who were giving out these trainings for free.
Okay.
And so we were able to reach tens of thousands of, Nigerians and Africans virtually with customer service trainings. And of course, there was no reason to not take it because it was free.
I was
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say when they understand, the appetite is there. But whether
Mhm.
or not they can afford it at the time now becomes a different layer
Yeah.
of the issue.
Of the discussion. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's very interesting because it's good to know that there is some adoption, because from a consumer or customer point of view,
Mm,
I wouldn't say myself necessarily because I don't live in Nigeria, but people I know who live in Nigeria who go back often, they
yeah.
just have, there's just, I mean, we're talking with
terrible.
producer before we started, just the issues they've encountered. Vanessa has
Yeah.
hers, people I know have theirs. So I think
Mm-hmm.
to know that at least there are people who are adopting. So there's hope that this is something that's becoming, people are now like, okay, this is something we need to have. And I think it's important because it also helps. I think right now we're seeing the rise of Nigerian businesses that are going global. They're based in Nigeria, but they're going global, especially in fashion. So that customer experience, higher standards and higher, a better framework for customer experience and customer satisfaction is, I feel like it's super important. And
It's
I think we're going to
important.
get to that. Vanessa's going to get to that in a
Mm-hmm.
bit. Yes, about sort of how these businesses that are looking to go global are navigating that in terms of what the customers need.
Uh-huh.
I think it's good to know that there is that understanding. Yeah. So you touched on something. You said Africa as well. I've always been curious if there are any nuances you've discovered in terms of the Nigerian customer service experience and any other African countries that you may have worked with or worked in.
Yeah. So I think with the other countries, it's mostly just getting training for the staff. So it's
Mm,
also the same thing. You're employing people who have a certain mindset or have lived a certain kind of life or, are used to survival. So you're trying to get them to go from there to a customer service or customer experience mindset. So
mhm,
Uh-huh.
outside Nigeria, I wouldn't say I have really encountered any wild, nuances. I would say it's mostly just for training purposes, at least with the businesses I
mhm.
have worked with.
Okay. Are there cultural differences that affect how they would approach their customer service?
Yeah, I guess it would vary. It would vary from, place to place. Even within Nigeria, there are cultural differences that would determine, how businesses will deliver that experience to their customers. So,
Mhm.
for instance,
Yeah.
if I'm training a business that's domiciled in Abuja, is going to be
Yeah.
very different from, say, I'm training a business that's in Ibadan, because in Ibadan, respect is king. You're going to have to work around that. You can't
Yeah.
tell them, oh, yes, call your customers by name. That's not going to happen. So you have to, sometimes I hold very strong opinions when it comes to customer service, but depending on the locality
Region.
or the cultural nuances, I have to then
Mhm.
adjust to be able to fit into that space so the business doesn't then turn into, you know, a rebellious business as far as the customers in
Yes.
that vicinity are concerned. Yeah.
That
Mm.
comes
Yeah.
it's fair. That's 100% fair. I think like how in Abuja maybe things are a little bit more relaxed. In Lagos there's a lot of competition, so you maybe have
Yes.
to up the ante a bit. With how you're
Yes.
responding to staff and
Mm-hmm.
That's a good
to
one.
clients. That definitely makes sense. I want us to push the conversation and maybe using the whole Imagine by Bukola fiasco as a lens to look at it, but I hear a lot of times from people, oh, customer is king, customer is king, oh, treat your customers the best way that you can. What are your opinions on that statement? The customer or the client is king. Is that something that you find to be, true? And how do businesses navigate it? Because I don't think that customer is king means that you should tolerate bad behavior from your customers. But let's hear from
Mm.
you.
Okay. So yes, you're right. We hear customer is king. We hear the customer is always right. You know. Um. But for me, those are two different things. I always say the customer is not always right, but the customer is king. And what happens
Uh-huh.
is when a king is making a pronouncement, whether or not the king is right, you can't say, sorry, sir, what you're saying is not correct, right? You kind of
Uh-huh.
just have to say, okay, sir, yes, sir. So
Yeah.
what happens with that is the customer is king means you need to understand that the only reason your business exists is to serve customers, right? If there were no
Okay.
customers, you have no business, you have no business idea, right? These are the people who patronize you. These are the people who give you money. These are the people who keep your business running. So in that sense, the customer is king. And what that means is that you're supposed to be doing everything within your power to ensure that the customer has an excellent experience every time they interact with your business, to ensure that the customer feels so good about that interaction that they want to keep coming back over and over and even tell people about your business. Okay.
Okay.
However, I always say you must draw the line somewhere. So I spoke earlier about service standards and about letting people know that if you're going to do business with us as customers, these are our rules, and you're going to have to behave yourself within the context of our rules. So for example, I've had
Yep.
clients who would tell you that customers will come in, the customer gets upset about something, and the customer is literally clearing things off the shelf and breaking things in the store or trying to get
Oh my
physical
God.
with customers. And I told them, I said, if you need to, you must put up a sign to say that you do not tolerate physical or verbal abuse of your staff. You must
Abuse.
draw the line somewhere, because your staff are even your internal and first customers. They must feel safe and they must be happy to do their job. They must be treated well for them to treat your customers well. So you must draw the line somewhere. And I say, yes, the customer is king, but if that king walks into your store and is getting physically or verbally abusive, throw them out. That person is not your customer. Yeah. So you must
True.
learn to draw the line somewhere. And usually when you draw the line somewhere, other badly behaved customers would then see that, okay, within this space, I can't do XYZ. So then it's up to me to decide, do I still want to come here or do I want to go somewhere else where they're going to let me do
Mhm.
XYZ?
Do XYZ.
And it's
Yeah.
okay to lose customers because not everyone is your customer. That's why we have target customers. That's why we have customer profiles. Not everyone is your customer. But whatever you're doing, as long as you define it properly, you will then have these rules and these standards that would attract your ideal customers and repel the customers you do not want to do business with.
Not everybody's your customer, right? I
Fantastic.
think that that's one thing people need
Mm-hmm.
to learn. Not every business is good business. Sometimes somebody's business will cost
Yeah.
you more in the long term. So that's definitely fair. When clients walk into a space and are verbally abusive or unruly towards like the service providers, whether tailors, servers, whatever it is, even in the bank, you see people behaving like whatever at the bank. For me, I think also it's
Mm-hmm.
also a reflection on you as the customer, right? Because while they owe you customer experience, you also owe them a certain level of respect. It's a it's to some
Respect.
extent a trade.
Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
it's a give and take situation. You have to treat people with respect to also get certain things that you're looking for. Yes, they're there to
Yeah.
make your life easier or make that service extend or expand or
Mm-hmm.
improve how that service feels to you or whatever. But if you're not walking into a space and treating people like human beings, which they are, we all are, then I think that it's also questionable for you to expect, to be treated with a certain level of dignity. But I don't know, did you see
Mm-hmm.
the whole Imagine by Bukola fiasco play out on social media? Or because some people don't really follow what's going on social media. I don't know if you caught it.
Yeah, I'm not familiar. No, I'm not familiar with what's going on. But please enlighten me so we can actually talk about
Okay.
it.
Wow. Story story time. So there's a popular fashion designer in Nigeria. Imagine by
Mm-hmm.
Bukola is the name of the brand.
Yeah.
A lady in the US had contacted her months before her wedding. I said, "Hey, I'm getting married. This is what I need from you. Yada yada yada." And the brand said, "Okay, yeah, we can work with that. We can make it work. We'll drop a sketch for you." They drop a sketch. I think they were about supposed to do like 2 or 3 dresses for her, whatever the case may be. They drop a sketch, she gets the sketch, she approves the sketch, and communication begins to shake. Now, this is a virtual client, right? So a lot of the communication is going on through WhatsApp and phone calls
Yeah.
and check-ins. First started with the fabric that she wanted. The bride was specific. The bride does have has a background in fashion, so she was specific. I wanted a darker mesh on my dress. It's what I want. The brand was pushing back on it. The fabric, the brand didn't want her to use the fabric that she had initially chosen. After she had chosen the fabric, they then came back to her and said, "Oh, this fabric won't really work." So there was a lot of back and forth, and the brand wasn't listening to exactly what the bride was looking for. The bride had told them, okay, I'm going to pick up my clothes when I come to Nigeria in August. Her wedding was in October, I think. But she said, I'll pick up my clothes when I come to Nigeria in August. And she had reached out to them well in advance, like at the beginning of the year advance. She paid her deposits, everything. She gets to Nigeria in August. The day she's meant to come for her fitting, they're dancing around. The dresses are not ready. She can't do her fitting properly. She literally has to chase them to like their production floor, chase them kind of vibes to get the dresses fitted. Then they come and they say, oh, ashoke is a very sensitive material. They'll send the ashoke to her at a later date to maintain or keep the integrity of the fabric. It was just a bunch of hocus pocus. The actual designer herself that did the dress was not available at the fitting. She was in London, so she joined via video call with her team. They're just not responsive. Then a second bride now came out and said, this happened to you, hold my beer. Let me tell you guys what happened to me. Similar story of what I got versus what I ordered. What I ordered still looked nice, but it wasn't what you told me you were going to give me. So I think about 3 brides came out, same atelier or same fashion house.
3.
Yeah, 3 brides eventually came out, same fashion house, same thing. Bride doesn't listen. And in the process of all of this, we find out that the fabric that she was pushing on bride A, or the fabric that bride A wanted, she offered it to bride B. There was a crossover in the fabrics when they started bringing out their proof. Anyways, the brand decides to respond. At first they were like, oh, we hear your complaints. We're going to listen to everybody. Then she does this, I don't even know to call it apology video, Instagram ad. She does a video. And in the video, she shows her staff undergoing customer service or improvements, whatever, they're wearing lab coats and somebody's talking to them. Then they put pins, because that's another thing people complained about, that, oh, they received the dress with pins in it. They put pins and say, oh, find the 10 pins in 2 minutes, all of this stuff, whatever. And at the beginning of the video, she introduces herself and says, oh, I'm XYZ person, and I want to extend what did she say? Not sincerest. Typically, people say sincerest apologies, but just sincerest acknowledgements of all the things. And everybody's like, what do you mean by sincerest acknowledgement? And then at the end of the video, she's in the middle and her staff come and form a circle around her and they're giving her flowers and they're chanting, we will do better at Imagine Bible Color. And everybody's like,
what?
Like, what is going on?
I clearly missed a lot.
You meet everybody's like, I'm so sorry. Like, are we in a simulation? Like, what in the master and slave vibe is that you're sitting down and your staff are kneeling down and giving you roses and then they're chanting, we will do better. And for me personally, as someone that consumed the content, I think for me what was really missing was that accountability. Accepting that, like you said, your standards of operation, there might be a flaw in standard of operation, and assuring your clients that you are going to work on it. What I got from it was more so, okay, yeah, we made a mistake, and I'm going to put it on my staff, as opposed to me, who is the creative director, founder.
Yes, no accountability. Yeah.
Because it was the staff that were doing the apologizing, right? One of the guys in the video was like, oh, we hear your complaints. Clearly, he's a tailor or works on the production floor. He's like, we hear your complaints and we're going to do better. We're trying to do better, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, the problem is not with you. The problem is with the face of the brand and how they handled the situation. And I think it was also interesting to realize that the brand has somebody called a conflict resolution manager. And then that begged the question for me, how many conflicts are you guys really resolving? That you have an entire person that is a conflict. That for me is a bit of a red flag, that you have a conflict resolution manager. So that's a synopsis of what has gone on. And I think it kind of led to other brands. People started talking about other brands. I know the one that I said that I just recently saw was Shadiat Alashoke. I haven't watched the video. It's like 4 parts and my brain is fried. So I didn't even bother to get into the video, but it's just people started coming out with like more brands and saying, oh, XYZ brand did this to me. You imagine that my dress for my wedding came on the morning of my wedding. And I think, to tie everything together, I think particularly with the fashion business, this seems to be a consistent call out in terms of just the standards that are there. Like people have, and so many brands, you've always heard, my dress didn't come on my wedding day, I had to find a second dress, whatever. One of these bride even had to find another person to make her dress or whatever. So that's the storyline here. But what I wanted us to actually focus on or have a conversation about with this storyline is conflict resolution as a business, because it is part of customer service, whether we like it or not. And conflicts will arise. Your job ideally is to minimize those conflicts before they get inflamed. But what and I know that Nigerians, we can be there's a lot of ego. We're playing with a lot of ego, as Nigerian people. So just from your professional outtake, what are, when it comes to conflict resolutions for businesses, what would you say are the key things that are hindering us from getting that right?
Okay, excellent. So thanks for that run through. As you were telling the story, I could see I could see the lines, connecting the lines. We've seen this over and over and over again. And I mean, fashion businesses can be terrible, but when you put them in the wedding industry context, it's
It
ridiculous.
goes up.
And I'm very familiar with that.
Every few years, it's something with
It's
those
crazy. It's ridiculous. So after my wedding, I actually wrote a book just to help people avoid, I would say I wrote it from a, not wasting your money type of, angle for having a wedding in Nigeria. But there was something you said, you talked about ego. I'll start there. When it comes to businesses, we talked about, cultural influences and all that when it comes to customer service. One of the major ones we have a problem with is this issue of hierarchy, especially as it relates to social status. So you have a situation where the business feels they're too good for certain customers feel they're too good for certain businesses, and so that's how they're interacting with each other. That's why a business would feel like one customer is more important than the other, because they have sort of, classified them according to how they fit into the different social strata. Now that's one. Two is that a lot of businesses, thanks to the whole social status, thanks to social media in particular, a lot of businesses build their business around the product and not the customer. And we see that a lot in the fashion industry. What that means is, you, a paying customer, you go to a business to make a custom wedding gown or a custom wedding attire. And the business wants you to wear what they feel would look better for their brand, not what you want. Right? They're building their business around their product and how it looks and how it photographs, not what the customer wants. Ideally, as a business, you should be giving the customer what will make the customer happy on their day. And I say it's particularly sensitive when you're dealing with a bride, because that is such an emotional event. That's a once in a lifetime event, hopefully. And then you are playing with the bride's emotions. You are literally playing a part in ruining her special day. You can't survive that as a business, because word will go round, right? So building your business around the product and not the customer is a problem. Now we go to conflict resolution. We say, look, when it comes to service delivery, it won't always go 100%. It's not possible.
Sure.
There must be issues at some point. Something will go wrong for sure, whether it's your fault, whether it's the customer's fault, whether it's a third party. And in customer experience, we call what you do service recovery. That means, what do you do as a business to recover that customer and ensure that you put them back in a place where they are still happy to do business with you next time? A lot of businesses, that's where they miss it. Once there's a problem, their ego steps in, they start, taking, and then one thing I've noticed, they take it personal. I tell clients, if the customer calls you out and says, you are very stupid, you cannot afford to take it personal. Or the customer says, you were not raised right. You don't have to take it personal. The customer doesn't know your parents. They don't know your background. They don't know how you were raised. The customer is going to say that regardless of who was the face of the brand or regardless of who they were speaking to. The customer is aggrieved. It's nothing personal. You don't then just go with that and then it turns into a personal fight between maybe business owner and customer, right? Service recovery means that you are doing everything you can just to ensure that you resolve that issue first. That's the priority. So, okay, the customer starts complaining. What was the issue? Because, okay, we didn't use the net. Please, let's change the net. Let's give the customer the net that she wants. Anything to make the customer happy, regardless of what it will cost you. That's service recovery. But a lot of businesses don't do that. And I think the most painful part is when the business chooses to issue what they call an apology.
Oh.
Most times, I think I personally just feel you should have just kept quiet. Let's just assume you are
Yes.
bad and keep it moving. Because when it comes to this apology, they just make matters worse.
Worse.
You can literally
They do.
hear the ego.
Mm.
And then they would end up insulting the customer even further and just making matters worse.
Mm.
So for me, like I said,
Yep.
it goes back to training. Because yes, in your upbringing, maybe you knew nothing about conflict resolution. Maybe you weren't, you didn't study anything that has to do with that. These are things that we should
Yeah.
study in schools, but we don't.
True.
So you have to be aware enough to know that this is something I need to know and understand. As a business owner, and even your staff need to understand how to handle issues that will definitely arise with customers. And for your service recovery to work, you even have to have a service recovery plan. And that plan is going to include what are all the things that could possibly go wrong in this our line of business. And for each one, how do we handle or address it when the
Yeah.
time comes? Because you have to stay ready.
Yeah.
It's not when it happens, you're
Right.
not running helter skelter. Because when it happens, one person has responded emotionally, another person is trying to use logic, and there's just chaos, and you're going back and forth, and there's really no plan on how you want to handle it and recover that customer. And that's why a lot of them just feel at that point when something goes wrong.
And I think
Yeah.
something you
Fair
said
points.
just brought back a memory for me. It brought back a memory for me. When you said they will be telling you, trying to sell to you what they think is best versus what you asked for. I noticed this as well with like salons when you're doing your hair. Sometimes they
Okay.
tell you, "Oh, are you sure this one will be fine? Do this one instead." I've had that
Yeah.
experience in the past as well. So I don't know. There is also a problem in terms of it's either they don't know how to do it and they're trying to circumvent that, which is a problem in
Yes.
itself. Because that was my
Yes.
experience. The person did not know how to do what I wanted. So they went and did who knows what. And so I think that one about them trying to sell something else to you is so accurate and is so correct. And then
Yes.
I think sometimes the owners or the people managing the business, right? So I guess social media comes into it because sometimes people try to reach them on social media to sort of be like, I'm having this issue, blah, 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 or send them a text on WhatsApp. I think they forget that every interaction is also a representation of the business. Maybe they think it won't come
Yes.
out or something. Then you start seeing screenshots of responses that they made and you keep thinking, did this person know they're talking to a customer? Because so it's so true. That thing of training and knowledge. It's like they think they don't know that at every point a customer is a customer, right? Even if it's a friend, a customer is a customer
Yes.
because you never know what could happen. Someone
Absolutely.
can release text and messages, and now you look like boo boo. You look like you look silly. You look unprofessional. You look, and it always confuses me when I see those messages. I'm like, is this how you talk to your customers when you see that? Is it because you think nobody's looking, or like you said, they just think they're better than their customers, or what? So it's a lot of things that confuse me, and I sort of wonder, especially the one where they recommend something to you. That one just makes me laugh because I never understand what they think is supposed to happen. I'll just say, okay, yes, just give me that thing that
Yes.
you're
Just
recommending.
whatever
Yeah,
you
just
like.
Yeah,
Take
that
my
you
money, give
yeah.
me what you like.
right.
And there was an important point you made about taking responsibility. I think a lot of business owners also do not understand. The customer doesn't care who your employees are. The customer is dealing with the business. And it's worse if you are the face of that business. So for a lot of these popular or celebrity business owners online, they need to understand that they are responsible for whatever the business does, because a lot of people probably came to the business because of you and because of your content and because of whatever they felt or thought about you. So you can't now have a problem, just like you described, and then it's your tailors taking responsibility. It does not work that way. The customer doesn't care who your tailors are. They don't care. In fact, they don't care about anything. All they see is you, and you are the business, and you must be able as a business owner to take accountability, take responsibility. That's why we see global brands, something goes wrong, and the first thing you hear is the CEO has resigned, the CEO has stepped down.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's taking responsibility. It's possible the CEO didn't even know what happened, but somebody has to take that responsibility,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And to whom much is given, much is expected.
Much is
You can't
expected,
take the
right?
glory when it's going good and then put the blame on your staff when things
Mm.
go wrong. It
Go
doesn't work
back.
that way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think for the
And
amount,
why were
And
they
I think
bringing her flowers?
I was
yo,
about to get into that. I think a lot of
go
businesses
ahead.
too need to get out of their bubble and understand that, are you here as a content creator or are you here to do business? Because that
Right.
sounded more like content creation than a business owner trying to actually resolve a
Mm.
problem with the customer and save their image. Because
Mm.
in focusing on the content, you've even damaged your image and reputation even further.
Yeah.
More.
Because now you are looking really stupid as a business to your customers and to potential customers who
Customer.
Yes.
thought
Exactly.
and felt and dreamt that they wanted to use you for their weddings in future.
Mm.
Exactly.
So you've
Ah,
even
You're
lost
very
out on revenue that you didn't even know you were going to
yes.
get.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're
Future
extremely
revenue
correct
gone.
because the conversation on Twitter post that video in particular, I think at first she had she said, "Oh, we see the complaints, we're working to clear our internal whatever." Before she made that video, people were a bit more gracious, right? To be like, "Oh, mistakes happen, whatever." But after that video, there was this like,
Yeah.
anybody that goes to this person after this now, anything your eyes see, just take it like that because clearly this is not a serious person at all. Like, and for the amount that a lot of these brands are charging, they're charging you in dollars. You're making interest. You're
Are
telling me ten
charging. Yep.
thousand dollars,
That's the other thing.
$15,000.
Mm-hmm.
Some might even go as high as 20K US dollars for you to charge premium prices, but your communication, your customer service is not matching premium. And I think for me, that has been my biggest disconnect. You want, and
Yeah.
I don't have a problem paying your hefty tags or hefty labels. If I've decided that I want to patronize your business, I've already decided that I want to patronize the business. So I know what I'm walking into. But when I get there and
Mm.
Yes.
I'm seeing things for $20,000, $15,000, but the service or the standards of operation are just in the gutter. I'm like, so you're charging all this money to do what exactly? For what exactly? Because clearly you're not investing that money back into this business because we as the customers cannot
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
where the money is going to. Yes, nice fabrics, whatever, but like your staff don't know how to talk to people.
Mm.
You don't know how to talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
You're never available when you're needed. Like it's, I don't
The
know. I don't
deliveries
even
are
know.
late, not just
It's
days,
just
And
weeks.
not
yeah.
just
Late
So
deliveries.
weeks.
businesses need to also understand that customers are not stupid, right? Just like you said, if you go somewhere and you're paying thousands of dollars, you expect to get value for your money. It's the
Mm.
reason if I'm paying $100 for something, I expect $100 service, right?
Yeah.
Let's be realistic. If I'm paying 5,000, I expect 5,000 service. Customers are not stupid and they want value for that money. The problem is that a lot of businesses don't understand the weight of responsibility that's on them when they're charging these high and, quite frankly, ridiculous prices. They think you just charge because you are popular. That's not how it
Mm.
works. The problem is you're popular, then you start charging high. Then people come to interact with your business and they realize there's nothing behind the facade. So there's
Yeah.
nothing for them to tell people. There's nothing positive for them to tell people to ensure that your business keeps running and that you keep getting customers. Guess what? You can only scam a customer once. They're not going to come back. They're not
Preach.
going to go and bring
Preach.
their family members, their friends back to you after you have scammed them. To you, you have made one sale, but you could have made 50 from that person. So as a business, you're not even operating at a level that you should be if you actually were interested
Yeah,
in
you're
serving
not
your
maximizing.
customers. And so
Yeah.
Mhm.
quite frankly, you remain a local champion until the day those same customers come and crumble your business.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Definitely.
So Sotonye, I want to push back a bit on that customers not returning, because this is just an opinion, no empirical evidence. I feel like one of the reasons why customer service is so bad in Nigeria is that a lot of customers actually do go back. So we see it
Mm-hmm.
specifically with like tailors, for example. See people complaining, that my tailor is always late. I'll tell him I want it in October, I won't get it in November. Yet they go back there. So I I sometimes feel like concerning Nigeria, they do go back to people who have shown them bad customer
Mm-hmm.
service. This is not always the case, right? But
Yes.
it's a high enough, I
Yes.
think, incident
I agree with
occurrence.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
I agree with you. And then I'll add to that and say, I do agree with you, but I'll
Mm.
say we could also consider that we have this devil mentality. Why?
Mm.
Because you know that they are all terrible. So you rather stick with the one that you already know
Like you can
until such a
manage.
time when probably someone you know. So we run mainly on personal referrals. So someone you
Yes.
know and trust has to tell you, look, this person is doing rubbish. Go to this person. I've used the person for 10 years. I can trust them. Do that. And then that's when you find people, okay, well, that's convincing enough. Let me try.
Mm-hmm.
But for them to just walk away and start the process of trying to find someone else, they just feel like, well, better the devil I know. I know that if my tailor tells me 2 weeks, it's going to take 6. I'll
Mm.
just be here until such a time, that I find a
Yeah.
business that's worth moving to.
That's so
And I
true.
think to
Yeah.
buttress your point, on the other side of that coin, there could be limited availability of that service, right? So there are more and more things that
Yeah.
are maybe more niche or whatever, right? Maybe
Mm.
let me use a good example of something that I'm struggling with right now in this city. A good place to go to for brunch, right? For me, I feel like they are limited. There are places, but sometimes the food is not great. So you find a place where the food is great, but the service is like, come see, come sa. And it's like, you know what I'm really
Mm.
interested is my belly, right? So, okay, I will go back. I will chug up the bad service and just go there
Yeah,
and have a good meal, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you have situations like that where it's like, this is just going to have to work. Or the tailor that has better service is way out of your tax bracket because tailors are expensive these days. So the one that has good service
Mm.
is telling you, oh, it is so
Yeah.
worth it.
Mm.
You need 200,000. And you're like, let me just go back to that my tailor in Garki Market that is always late, but would do my dress nice for me at like 80, 90K if you can find that.
Yeah.
I think there's also that, you know, issue with, okay, there's limitations to what I can get here because already we're here. So I'm just going to deal with it.
Mm.
But I think that ultimately we all as individuals should strive to do better. And I think it kind of ties back to your initial point at the beginning about literacy levels just being really low, right? Where some people
Mm-hmm.
just don't
Yeah.
know better. They don't even know customer service or customer experience is like foreign statements, foreign word, foreign, the whole idea is foreign to them. So
Mm-hmm.
they don't even know where to look. And so I would want to ask, as a business that is, starting off, I want to employ people. What would be key things that I should look out for in the people that I employ? Because unfortunately, I can't be there every day to service the clients, right? These people are going to do most of the lifting.
Mm-hmm.
What should I look out for? What are the star qualities that you would recommend, giving the uniqueness of our country and the problems that we have?
So I think first you would need to look out for people that have just a general positive vibe, because the thing is here this question is really good because we're trying to make it easier for these people to be able to
Mm-hmm.
give that excellent service. So we're not trying to put like a round peg in a square hole, right? So you
Yes.
look out for people who just have like a general positive disposition. And then you should look out for things like kindness, empathy, right? People who can actually smile. I just feel these things as foundations help so that when you train, you're not trying to, take the person way out of their comfort zone. You're just sort of building on qualities that they probably already have. So I would say that look for people
Yeah.
who understand the concept of respect for themselves and people around them regardless of social status. And I think it's just qualities we really don't look for when we're,
Mm-hmm.
trying to hire. We
Yeah, when you're
should
trying
start
to
looking
hire.
for because it would make that service delivery aspect, you know, easier. I have a colleague who is always smiling. Like that's just her
Bless her.
general disposition. And I feel like if she were to go to like even a global corporation, they'll probably be like, you know what, you look really good as the face of the brand because
Yeah,
she's just
that's
always positive, even
Amina.
when she's
Yeah.
having a bad day, even when she's sad. But that was just her personality. However, it's, a really good value she can add in the customer service space.
I hope this doesn't come out harsh, but another, I think, issue around customer service or experience, right? And this also ties into, I think, different parts of the business that I feel like I have a problem with and that we've seen is greed. And when I say greed, we already touched on expensive prices and all of that. But I think that maybe in some ways can be justified. But I think one I would touch on is we had an episode on Dirty December in December, and we talked about sort of all the challenges people had and all that.
Mm,
And one of them was people would rent Airbnbs. So IJGBs, people from outside of Nigeria, they would pay for Airbnbs online. I'm coming to
mhm,
Lagos typically in December. I'll be there for 2 weeks. I booked this Airbnb, good to go. And then let's say they booked it 3-4 months in advance. Then maybe like a week before they're about to arrive, Airbnb manager then decides to cancel that reservation because they've gotten a higher offer. Or they tell the person, we know you booked this for $100 a night, but actually it's now 150. Will you pay? You go pay or you no go pay. And if the person can't, it's cancelled and they go somewhere else, right? So I know that ties into customer experience in the sense of you've just blindsided this customer, you've left them
mhm,
stranded, right? And I think because the Airbnb situation, I feel like it's a bit different because with fashion, you almost sort of have return customers or people who would refer people or something. I feel like the
mhm,
Airbnb, it's not that structured yet, at least in Nigeria. It's not that structured yet because maybe the options are different or the needs are different. So I just wonder, what are your thoughts on that in terms of business owners who offer not great customer service or experience because they are always looking for the highest return or the highest revenue
mm,
to the detriment of customers who put their faith in them. Like you said, this results in low trust environments because now people coming from outside of Nigeria will have low trust for Airbnb owners in Nigeria. And it's not just going to affect that one person, it's going to affect the
yeah,
entire
the entire
sector.
industry.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So what do you say to that in terms of customer experience and service?
So I think that would take us back to what we spoke about, the cultural influence and
Mm.
even the social influence. A lot of people, like you said, they're doing business to survive. Some people are doing business for their next meal, but some people are doing business to get their next luxury item. So they want to get that car now. They want to, they want to go on vacations, and they see their business as the quickest way to fund that lifestyle they so desperately want to flaunt online, right? So, unfortunately, people are not doing business to build something that lasts, or they're not doing business as a long term plan. They're doing
Mm.
business for the now, for what they can get now. That's the
Yeah.
only reason a business owner can just wake up and decide, yes, it's basically, the highest bidder. I don't care how a particular customer feels. It doesn't matter because somewhere in the back of your mind, you don't really have a long-term plan. You don't have a plan to be here for long. You don't have a plan to maybe
That's so true.
expand beyond Lagos or expand beyond Nigeria into
Mm.
Africa. If you had, some sort of vision or goal, you would run your business a lot different than what they're doing. So I
Yeah.
think that just has to do with the why.
Mm.
If you start business just
That's a
because you
fair
want to,
point.
oh, this business,
Yeah.
I see people can make money, you can make quickly, 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 and then, I can buy this spider, I can have, I can live a
Mm.
comfortable life, then you're going to act like it and you're not going to care
Yeah.
about the customers because it was never
Um,
about the customers. It was never about delivering an
Mhm.
excellent service or delivering an excellent product. It was just about what you can get.
Yeah.
it
So,
was a
and
cash
I
cow.
believe with time, yes, I believe with time and with customers, picking up and reviewing businesses, it would get
Mhm.
to a point where you'd be able to separate, the serious people from the unserious ones because it might look like people are
Uh,
cashing out now, but honestly, they won't be around for long. It's only a
Yeah.
matter of
yeah.
time. With
Yeah.
social
Yep.
media now, the word goes round quickly,
Quick.
quickly.
Quick. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
they
just
definitely
unfortunate
won't be
because
able
now
to
it's like
stand the test of time.
everybody, yeah,
Yeah.
because now it's like, oh, those Nigerian people, they just cancel. Meanwhile, it's not everyone, but it's just,
Yeah.
a few bad actors. So it's definitely quite frustrating for everybody. The people that are watching, the customers, people that have booked, this
Mm-hmm.
happened to our co-host a week before it
Wow.
was supposed to arrive. They
Oh
just said,
yeah, yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
cancelled. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a
So
crazy
it's
situation.
really, yeah. So that one is just a bad customer experience that I
Mm-hmm.
think the reason why I was curious about that is because I know there are scenarios where maybe it's not necessarily, it's a different kind of business than fashion. And I know the Airbnb space, I feel like, I don't know if I'm wrong, but I think maybe the structure, like you said, I think eventually we'll start to see things maybe get more structured. You start to see the reviews. Oh, this Mr. A or Miss B, she
Mm.
did this to me last time, and people will book. They'll be like, okay, not booking with this person. And then they start to see that, okay,
Mm.
the actions are starting to have consequences. So
Yeah.
I
Yes.
really hope so, because that was a very interesting discussion. And I couldn't believe that was what was happening. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
They're scary, at the core of it, because also these people go abroad, you see
Mm.
them living on this lavish, especially founder-led businesses, right? Where the founders are actively sharing their own life online. And
Yeah.
you can see the disconnect between the
Mm-hmm.
kind of life that the founder is and what you're actually receiving with their service. And you're trying to put the puzzle together and you're like, this is not making sense. I think that especially for
Mm-hmm.
founder-led businesses where the founder is very visible, so you have to be very careful. You have to be extremely careful because people know what your personal life
Yes.
looks like, and the kind of things that you're
Yes.
accustomed to and that you like. So they're expecting, like you said
Mm-hmm.
earlier on, right? They're expecting a certain level of service from you. So I think those kind of people should even be more tight with their customer service experience. It needs to match a certain standard. It needs to give a
Yes.
certain vibe and all of that.
Mm.
But this has been an interesting conversation. But before we kind of wrap things up, I wanted to kind of give you an opportunity to either like give a word or advice to anybody right now that's trying to start a business. And of course, customer service is always going to be there. What would be your advice for them of things that they should do? Because I think we want people to live here with tools to be able to prevent these situations. We don't want them to be in those situations before they're looking for those answers. So what would be your advice on what they should do before actually get into it?
Okay. So my number one advice would be build your business around your target customer. So for every decision you're making, no matter how small you think it is, from your products to your packaging to your promotion strategy, build everything around your customer. Okay, first, that means you must first determine this is the kind of customer I'm willing to serve. This is the type of person I'm willing to serve. So now what would this person like me to do? That's the perspective. Don't build a business based on what you think would be nice or what you think would sell, right? You might start from there, but ensure that you are focused on the customer every step of the way. And like I said, I think we've talked about everything that's really important. Just have a plan that revolves around your customer. Have a plan for training. Don't take the customer experience for granted. Honestly, the customer just remembers the experience because guess what? There's nothing you are going to sell that millions of people are not already selling around the world and even in your locality, right? So it's not
Very
about the
true.
product, it's not about the service, it's about how you ensure that that product or service revolves around the customer and what they actually want. So ensure that you take that customer service serious. Ensure that you plan for training. Educate yourself as a business owner. First and foremost, I always believe in the business owner taking responsibility, right? I've had cases where I'm called to train the staff, and I always advise the business owners to be present. But most
Yeah.
times, 8 out of 10, they do not attend.
Mm.
So you now have a situation where the staff get all the knowledge, but you, the business owner who is actually calling the shots, you don't
They're
really
not
know what
available.
you're doing. So what happens is there's an issue with a customer. The staff know how they should handle it. However, they might not have what's it called? You might not have given them the power to do what they should do. So
Implement.
they need
Yeah.
you
Uh-huh.
to make that call, but you do not even have the knowledge required to make the right call. So you make a wrong call. And even though they know what they should do, they have to do what the boss said they should do. That
They
happens
should do.
almost all the time.
Often. Wow.
In my
True.
experience, yes. So you as the business owner take responsibility to train yourself on what is important when it comes to customer service and customer experience. And then you are
Makes
able to
sense.
also cascade down to your staff. You might not even have to pay someone to come and tell them what you have already learned
To
and know
do
to
it.
practice. And then I would
Mm,
say, yes. And then I would say the last one would be have a service recovery plan. Have a service
Okay.
recovery plan. Literally sit down and think, play devil's advocate. What could possibly go wrong? Put yourself in the shoes of your customer. What could possibly go wrong? Have a list of all that and then have a
mm,
plan on how you intend to handle it, down to the scripts, what you're supposed to say, right? So that you're
Yeah.
saying the right things at the right
mm.
time for the right situation. And you're not just acting off the fly
Oh, yeah.
or based on your emotions, because we're humans. You might be in a good mood today and handle a situation excellently well, but then tomorrow something happened, you're not in
A
the
bad
mood,
day.
you're really upset, you're just coming out of a meeting that really upset you, and then you have to deal with an upset customer and you just spill over them. You transfer that aggression. So always have a plan. A plan will keep you and your staff in check when things actually go wrong. I think that would be my, like, if I say general advice for, people
Advice.
wanting
Yeah.
to start.
Yeah.
Great.
And
Thank
I
you.
think
Thank you.
I
Already.
just
Any
have
last
one.
thoughts?
Yeah. So I have one
Okay.
last question for you, right? And this will be
Okay.
coming from the perspective of consumers. So there are scenarios where the owner or the business owner there are issues outside of their control. So, but this has led to a bad customer experience. It happened recently with Hanifa, the fashion brand. So in summary, they
Mm,
had a sales pre-order, right? So I'll just summarize just the high level, but they did a sales, and customers ordered pre-order. And let's say, I think it was in October, and they told customers you will receive your orders in December, but customers did not receive their orders. And obviously the complaint started, where's my order? Where's my order? They reached out to Hanifa, and from the discussion that I've seen online, they responded well. So they said, we are sorry. Some people felt they didn't give the updates in time. So there were issues in the supply chain that was causing the delay. So they said, we're sorry. Actually, this will come in January or whenever. And some people were giving gift cards, some people were giving updates. So some people felt like they handled it well. So they didn't just say, oh, I beg, go and sit down. Hanifa she's based in the US. She's, I think, Congolese American, but she's
she
based
is
in the
Congolese
US.
American.
Yeah, and she has a sort of, I would say, luxury brand. So I think that affected the business, and I think recently, maybe last week or 2 weeks ago, she has now announced that she's pausing operations. They are no longer taking orders, but every order that's still pending will be fulfilled. But after that, she's going on a long pause due to various issues. So my question based on that is now, because there's a lot of discourse of this online, people attacking her, people complaining. How much grace would you say consumers or customers should give businesses? And I ask this question because with social media now, people can be very brutal, like very, very brutal. And it has its pros and its cons. It keeps businesses accountable. But at the same
True.
time, even when somebody's trying their best, it can,
They're also human beings on the other
it
side.
can be like, yes, there are human beings on the other side. So how much grace should consumers give, or should they give them any grace at all? Some people may say, no, why should I give them grace? I'm paying, blah, blah, blah. So what is your opinion on this?
Okay, so I would say the amount of grace a business gets will depend on what they have done to earn that grace. And I say this because, so the amount of grace you get as a business will depend on a couple of things. One, it will depend on your reputation, okay?
Okay.
And your reputation will depend on what you've been consistently doing in terms of your service delivery. So if this brand has always delivered excellently, excellent fabric, keeping to their word and all, that means over time they would have built, a cult following of loyal customers. And the beautiful thing that loyal customers would do is that when something goes wrong, they jump to your defense. They don't even wait for you
Mm,
to put out a statement to say, oh, this is what happened. They're
True.
already out there saying, well, this is unusual because I've been with this brand for 5 years and this has never happened. Something must have gone wrong somewhere. This is not their usual. And so you already have this army of people defending you, giving you that grace only because you already have a reputation for excellent service delivery. That's
Okay.
one. Two, the amount of grace you get would also depend on how you handle the issue when things go wrong. Now, I'm not talking about waiting for somebody to call you out. I'm saying immediately you on the back end realizes that there is a problem that's going to affect your promise to your customer, you should take action.
Okay.
I always say, if you wait for the customer to call you, you have already missed it.
Yeah.
Right? Because you knew before the customer realized that they were not going to get their package where you said they were going to get it. So the onus was on you to reach out to the customer and say, dear customer, we're just reaching out to let you know that, we're having some issues with our production. And so these clothes you were expecting in December won't get to you until January, February, whenever. However, we'll still keep you updated as things progress. And you should go on to, keep the customer updated. What happens is for a lot of customers, you've succeeded in adjusting their expectations first. So you're not waiting until the day they're expecting the package for them to realize it's, oh wow, it's not coming. Because then they already had plans and you succeeded in ruining their plans. However, if you've told them in advance, maybe a month before or something, you've helped them to adjust. They might be upset, they might be disappointed, but you've given them a chance to adjust their expectations and maybe adjust their plans as well, as regards whatever you were supposed to deliver to them. And in that instance, you'll probably earn some grace for what you're going through.
Okay.
So, and I think, so in that instance, communication is key. Communication is key. Not just the initial communication, but still just going back to say, hey, we told you it's going to be delayed 2 months. Yes, we're still on it. This is where we are. At that point, you owe your customers as much information as you're willing to give them. Because you are now the one who needs to earn grace from them.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a great answer. A great way to look at it. I'll keep that in mind when I think of canceling the
that's
next
definitely
person
a good answer.
that annoys me because I'm so fast. Any little thing, I'm moving on. No. Yeah. So thank you so much. I think we've come to the end of.
Yeah, I think we've come to the end
Thank
of today's
you.
podcast. Thank you so much, Sotonye, for taking our invite. I'll be at short notice, but thank you so much for doing this. I'm sure they
Thank
can
you for
find you
having
on the
me.
CX podcast. You're very much welcome. If you guys need more tips, customer service related stuff, definitely check out Sotonye's podcast, the CX podcast. It'll be available wherever you get your podcasts from. I think that's all from us on the customer service. And I don't know if Sotonye has any last words before we bid you a goodbye. Do you?
Okay, just want to say thank you, ladies. It's been a lovely, lovely conversation, and I'm glad I was able to make this session. And yes, to anybody who wants to reach out with the CX Playbook, we're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, we're just about everywhere. So you can reach out. You can even send a DM if you have any questions for my co-host and I. We're always happy to answer questions. So yeah, thank you, ladies.
Such a great episode.
Yeah, thank
and
you
a
so
very
much. The
timely
pleasure
one
is
as well.
always ours
Thank you
to
so
have you.
much, Sotonye.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
And bye, everyone.